Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a bit of live gameplay, and yeah, that is a WZ-111, the mission tank. Yep. Now, before you all start going, oh my god, Gold Noob, this was actually basically a gift from Rei Lin. Yes, the same Rei Lin that donated all the prizes for the sub-contest that's just gone. He basically gave me all 7 tokens, and so thus I got the WZ-111 within several, like 3 days, 4 days of the mission coming live on the server. So that didn't take long. And in honour of all the hard work I put in grinding, because I was actually about halfway through the Brits, but obviously, I mean, it just took so much effort to get this thing. I put do it yourself on the sides in honour of Rei Lin, and how hard I had to work. So this is not a review, it's just going to be me playing the thing. I've played, I think, maybe 15 battles in it at this point. It's not nearly enough battles to form a coherent impression of it. I'm just going to do a bit of gameplay and show you some of what it maybe can do. Most of the battles I've played today, in fact, have been in this tank, and as you can see, I've done all right. I've made a fair old profit, and it does seem to make a fair old profit. I've won just over half of them. Damage per battle's not been too bad. On the whole, it seems just not bad, and that's the headline for this tank. It seems like a pretty decent tank. It isn't just something that Wargaming have cobbled together to give as a gift tank. This is actually a premium tank you can buy if you play on the Chinese server. Now, I did mention this in my Tier 8 premium video, and it was as much to say as, well, you can buy it on the Chinese server, but really nobody else can, so we're not going to bother looking at that. Kind of wish I had looked at it now, because, of course, it was not that long afterwards that Wargaming announced this was going to be the mission reward tank. So, what is it? Well, I've got 2 other tanks that I've bought previously, or been gifted previously in my garage. The IS-6 and the 112. Now, the 112 is the obvious comparison because it's the other Tier 8 Chinese premium heavy tank. And there is actually one other Chinese tank we could compare it to, the WZ-111-14, which is the Chinese Tier 9 regular heavy tank. Now, it's basically got the hull of the Tier 9, and it's kind of got the turret, but not really. And it's not really because the turret front is actually stronger. It's got bigger zones of 230mm armor, and you can look all this stuff up in Tank Inspector, by the way, if you want a detailed comparison between the various tanks. Tank Inspector, it's free. I'll probably remember to put a link in below, but this is just kind of like look and feel stuff. It has the same ammo count as the 112, and it's basically using exactly the same gun, the 122mm D25TA, which means you get the 250 pen heat ammo. The hull is alright. I would say actually the upper front plate's less bouncy than the 112, but the lower front plate is as bad. It's the same 80mm. And the side armor is basically the same as well. It is 80mm of side armor, but there's a strip of 30mm spaced armor on top of that. So in theory it's alright at side scraping, but this might actually be a tank where you want to reverse side scrape from time to time, just because the semi-pike nose arrangement, I'm going to call it that because it is kind of a semi-pike nose, it basically means that you can angle and inadvertently give your enemies a better chance of penning you. But if you sit dead onto somebody, of course, they can have a much easier time with that very weak lower front plate. So it's a mixed bag. If you can sit behind a pile of rubble and be kind of hull down, that's fine. But you don't want to sit and stay hull down because you've got those commander's hatches, just the same as you do with the 112. Where it is a lot more like the IS-6 than the 112, however, is the fact that not only does it have nearly the same rate of fire. Now, I did put a crew in the IS-6, but it's not really a fair comparison because this has got vents, but this tank's got vents plus the Brothers in Arms crew, so it's a less than 10-second reload on the IS-6. But this 10.5, so it's 10.5-second reload. The base IS-6 reload and the base WZ-111 reload without ventilation, or just with 100% crew, they're actually not that far apart. The IS-6 is still better, but the WZ-111 doesn't lag far behind, so it definitely beats the 112 rate of fire, which, as you can see, has an over 11-second reload. No ventilation on this, but even with a gun rammer, it's over 11 seconds. So it's much more like the IS-6 in terms of rate of fire, and it's also much more like the IS-6 in terms of mobility. And this thing actually moves around the battlefield really well. Looking at the stats in Tank Inspector, I was then surprised when I was actually on the battlefield by how well it does move around compared to what the stats say it should be like. So maybe there are hidden stats that even Tank Inspector doesn't cover, or it's just the combination of those soft terrain passability stats that means this thing moves actually really quite well. The 50 km/h top speed is... you're not going to get that unless you're going downhill, but you can easily get to 40 on flat ground. And you're already doing better in that regard than the 112, which is actually slower. It's also got the view range of the 112, which is actually superior to the IS-6, so extra view range is nice. IS-6 gets 350 base view range, 370 with that crew and the ventilation. This gets 380 base view range, so you might not want ventilation. You might actually want to put on, where are we? Binoculars. Or even maybe a gun lane drive. Because the gun handling, I mean, it's the same with the 112 and the IS-6. The gun handling is pretty terrible. I mean, that is the big fly in the ointment with all three tanks. The alpha on the gun, you can't complain about that, but the gun handling is quite frequently very frustrating indeed. So all that said, let's actually jump into a battle and actually play some games. Now, anything could happen. This is all being recorded live. I have no idea what it's going to be like. I'm doing this on a Thursday evening, so no weekend teams, I hope, but you can never quite predict how it's going to go. And the fact that I only generally can afford to do 1 or 2 games in these live recordings just based on, you know, video file sizes and whatever, means that I might get a pair of really terrible games in a row, because that can just happen whenever I'm playing. But based on the kind of games I've had today, I think I've got a reasonably good chance. I've won more than half just playing solo, and it's made a really good profit for those games. I'm actually wondering if this gets better profit-making capability than the regular Tier 8 premiums do. I'm not certain though. That might just be my impression of things. So top tier, and I will say actually, although in theory, having looked at Tank Inspector, this thing in theory has the same matchmaking weight as the 112, and I think the IS-6 as well. It actually seems to get top tier a comfortable majority of the time. Most of the battles I've been in have been top tier, and if there have been tier 9s, there haven't been many tier 9s. That could just be coincidence, of course, but it might be that it actually does get, even for its limited matchmaking, it might be even within that limited matchmaking that it's still gets an extra buff in that regard. So you can see here the mobility going downhill is pretty nice. Going uphill, I mean, it doesn't have the strongest engine, so it struggles a bit more on slopes. It's like the 112 in that regard, but it turns all right. The terrain passability is all right. It just, yeah, it's kind of a. I would still say it's not quite as good as an IS-6 in some ways, but it is easily better than the 112. It definitely is. So here's a T-23E3, and you can see that my ammo rack's gone already. So if I can get that repaired, that would be quite nice. It does, I mean, it's a Chinese tank, so it's got the usual, oh, Chinese fuel tank thing. That was weird. Clicked the mouse button, nothing happened. But against even this guy with his full prem, and I can't blame him, he's got the US 76mm gun. It's his only chance of actually hurting me. Even with that, it's still actually not too bad. I'm going to have to wiggle around a bit actually, because if I give him time to aim at my weak spots. The commander's hatch especially, he's already killed my commander. Right, are you going to... No. Oh, thank you, T-150. Thank you. That's what I needed, somebody to ram into my side. Yeah, so the armour is quite troll, but I think, like the 112, and especially with the lower front plate, I don't think... Oh, I hit one of those shells with my lower front plate. You have to be very wary of that lower front plate, and I don't think you can just trust the armour that much. I think it falls into the category of troll armour rather than reliable armour. So, in terms of armour, I think the IS-6 definitely beats it as well. But, yeah, in other regards, I quite like it. Now, ammo rack damage has happened in a couple of the battles where I've been shot in the side especially. I don't seem to have had as much problem with fuel tank damage as I get with the 112, however, so it might be that your fuel tank module is actually stronger. Oh, can I get a shot at that? No, he's dropping down. Shots at the Cheeto, maybe? It's also horrendous at snapshots, much like the IS-6 and the 112. Unless you are fully aimed. Or, like, right in somebody's face, it can and will, you know, it's an utter dice throw as to whether it is actually going to hit what you want it to hit. And even at close range I've had some absolutely ridiculous misses just because it's that absolutely awfully handling 122mm gun. So you don't play this for its sniper-like capabilities because it's absolutely terrible in that regard. I'm actually going to back out here. There is still that armor may or may not save me. That's the T-34 though. That was probably yeah. Again, ammo rack damage. It does seem to be prone to that, to be honest. So that yeah, there was a chance that was going to bounce, but not a good chance. Not with his amount of penetration. So if this full health Tiger 2 would like to share some of the burden, that would be nice. I think we're actually going to get flanked by that IS-3 because nobody's watching that way. Nope, he's gone through the middle, never mind. There's a Tiger 2 unaccounted for as well. But a 20-second reload makes it not that fun. Right, just, would you go and take the hit, Tiger 2, or something? No? No? Okay. I'm going to rely on this guy too much. At least he's got full hit points. I mean, you can circle up a few shots from the T-34. At which point, maybe I can get in a few hits? Maybe? Still in the artillery to watch out for, though. Oh. So, in theory, I'm fairly safe hold down against him. There we go, nice bounce there, because he doesn't really have a chance to sit and aim for weak spots, but this 20-second reload is pretty bad, though. So yeah, ammo rack damage, I mean, safe stowage, even where ammo rack might be a thing. I've not played enough battles in this to really know if it's fully warranted or not. If it's worth taking up a slot with something like a wet ammo rack. But it's happened often enough in the last couple of battles to really be noticeable that the ammo rack is getting damage on a somewhat frequent basis. I'm actually going to back up here. Hopefully not take a shot in the side from that guy. Right, aim. Don't want to miss because it's kind of painful if I miss. The main problem is this Tiger 2 might just come out and shoot me in the butt because our Tiger 2, frankly, not that competent. Yeah. Well, you can take the hit there, Mr. Man. No, he's totally focused on this Chiri. But that Tiger 2 is totally focused on the Tiger 2, so that's fine. Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a wreck there. Well done, me. No, now we're just driving, go round and round the rock. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I mean. It is shockingly bad on the move, but that is... You don't play these tanks to be good at hitting things on the move. Because if you do, you're going to be terribly disappointed. Yep, there we go, he's down. Well, that was a slightly silly end, but I've done over 2k damage at least, and that means I'm going to make quite a healthy profit. So we'll just see what the results for that were. I don't even know. It's my second attempt at recording this. The first one was alright-ish, but I thought, no, let's go again. Actually, I was top of the team XP-wise as well. Not quite sure why. But as you can see from that, at 70k profit, yeah, this thing, it rolls in the credits. So that's not that much damage. I don't think, if I'd done a similar amount of damage in my IS-6, 112, T-34 Lerva, I don't think I'd have made 70k profit. So I think this thing does get an extra bonus to its money-making capabilities. It must do, because 70k profit for 2300 damage is not particularly... That's a good multiplier. And these shells aren't ultra-cheap shells. They are the 1k credits a pop shells, so it's not especially cheap. But the thing that I think I like of this over the IS-6 is, although the gun handling is equally as bad and it fires slightly slower, you get increased ammo capacity. And the IS-6, it doesn't happen that often, but it's the same with some of the other Russian heavies as well, is that you can run out of ammo and there's not much you can do about it. It's really annoying when it happens. It's not quite something that you have to be as careful of as... which of the Japanese mediums is it that runs out really easily? There's one of the Japanese mediums, and I know the Bat Chat, you have to shepherd your shells really carefully because that only gets like 30 shells as well. So some of the high tier tanks have this problem, is that they have a really limited shell capacity. But this isn't one of them. You'll also see I've got half a dozen heat shells, and I didn't have to use any of them in the last battle, but I might have to in this, just because it's a tier 9 battle. But again, not that many tier 9s. In fact, 2/3 of the both teams are sort of tier 8 and MISC. Tier 8 arty and a scout. It's actually quite even for the matchmaker. Sometimes, more and more recently, I don't know if it has been happening more and more recently, but it feels like it. That on a daily basis it throws up derpy teams, where it gives one side more top tiers or more scouts or whatever. This isn't looking particularly good, by the way. Yeah, this is never a good strategy on this map. The only way this works as a strategy is if the enemy team is bad enough to let it happen, basically. If they are halfway competent, they'll just push through the middle, and then they'll be able to either go and cap, or they'll be able to go down into that village area and root out whatever's there. So I don't have high hopes of this battle, but yeah, I'm actually going to try reverse side-scraping at this corner, actually, because I've not really tried that so far. Oh, hello, that's some mediums down there. Right, having said, I'll reverse side scrape. It's going to make things very awkward if I do. Frame rate's derping a bit, by the way. I've played a fair few games today, so I'm not sure why. There's that 175 pen, and that accuracy, by the way. It's one of the reasons why the IS-6 and the 112 don't play them that often. Okay then! I don't know what the game's doing, but it's doing something. You know, the previous recording? Absolutely fine. No derping at all. This recording, for some reason my frame rate... in fact, the previous battle was fine as well. Somebody pointed out, and yeah, Gnomefathers does take up extra memory, so Gnomefathers can cause these issues. But generally speaking, it's like the first... Whoa, hello. The first battle of the day, you get a lot of this. And then after that, it's fine, because it's got everything loaded. Or the first battle after booting your computer up, anyway. But, yeah, we're just getting overrun here, by the way. To the surprise of, oh, nobody at all. So, in theory, the sidearm was good for angling, but I think you just have to keep a really steep angle on it. Because, to be perfectly honest, I'm not having a lot of success with any kind of angling at all. Can I run away? No. He's my repair kit already, so RIP. This pretty much went as expected. These guys in the city have, well, they've not encountered any enemies at all, because the enemies are all there. So they're all, instead of coming back, they're all just kind of faffing around. I think they've maybe... Have they found one or two tanks? They found one enemy tank. Two enemy tanks, Tiger 2 and a T-54. And instead of going back, because the enemy team were, as it turns out, not horrendously bad enough to just sit there twiddling their thumbs when they had a clear numbers advantage, they're actually continuing on towards the cap, at which point it's all going to go horribly wrong, because good luck trying to cap and defend their cap when they can just come back and reset, or go and cap themselves. So this is a loss, pretty much. But it lets me at least give you a few concluding thoughts, I guess. It isn't worth full price for all the tokens. If you're just going to buy all the tokens, I wouldn't say it's worth $70. If you're a collector, if you just don't have the time but you do have the cash, then okay, by all means, you can spend the $70 or the €70 and just buy the thing outright, because it's a very grindy mission. We might win this by cap. It'd be kind of dumb if we do, but but what I was planning to do, and what I think it is worth the price of, is just a couple of those tokens, 2 or 3 tokens, and if you grind out the rest, at that point you are getting a tier 8 premium, a pretty decent tier 8 premium tank for a fairly reasonable price. So if you're going to do what I was going to do and just grind 3 or 4 of the nations and then buy the rest, because I was pretty sure in between doing, video stuff does take up a reasonable amount of time, and of course I do like to leave the house occasionally as well. So even though I do have a reasonable amount of free time, it would take a lot of free time and a lot of dedication to sit down and grind through the mission all the way through. If you're gonna buy a couple of tokens, I think that's the best way to do it, is to grind it some and then buy the rest. And of course Wargaming wins either way, and they especially win from us EU server saps, because it is the mission tokens are $10 a piece or €10 a piece, and the $10 ones are cheaper than the €10 ones because of exchange rates and stuff. So yeah, well paid, Wargaming, well paid. There was absolutely no reason for them to do that, but what is a $70 tank on the NA server is like an $80-odd tank on the EU server. Because screw you, EU, I guess? I don't know, there was absolutely no reason to do that apart from sheer greed, I guess. Or maybe somebody at Wargaming just really liked those nice round numbers. Yeah, sure. But yeah, for a couple of tokens, it's worth it. And it's definitely better than the 112. On a par with the IS-6 in some ways, definitely not as troll armor-wise. You can't brawl the same as you can with the IS-6, but on the whole I think it's a pretty reasonable tank, and I can see myself playing this. And I can only say once again, thank you to Rei Lin for just saving me all that grind and actually just buying me the thing outright. I think it's just a pity that not everybody has a friend like Rei Lin whose superpower... Yeah, it's like Spider-Man, his superpower is he can shoot credit cards out of his wrists. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.